I want to dive into something I don't usually talk about. It's a Wikipedia article that caught my attention not so long ago. Apparently, it has been around for years. It's a conspiracy theory that has circulated the dark corners of the web with one of the strangest, yet most plausible assumptions I've seen in a while. It's a theory that hides at the very bottom of our most primal senses of natural suspicions
that something
isn't what it appears to be. A theory that implies that the internet might no longer be what it once used to be, and implies something we all might subconsciously look for when browsing the web. It is what Morpheus in the Matrix refers to as a splinter in your mind. This theory has become known as the dead internet. The idea of the dead internet has been circulated through multiple accounts and websites over the years, but it first spawned in the sphere of 4chan back in the years around 2016 and would later be compiled into one complete post by a user who goes by the name of IlluminatiPirate. The original post is written by a concerned user who had begun to notice discrepancies in the behavior of some of the other users on the forums. OP is a self-described veteran of the internet. He has seen the birth and evolution of the modern web, having been deeply involved in online interaction for his entire life, and it is here, in his mid-30s, that he finally starts to realize something is off. He explains the appearance of one peculiar character across several message boards on 4chan, a character which he describes as curious. The character begins engaging the users of 4chan in conversation about a variety of topics across many different boards. Throughout the conversations, the character indicates a vast amount of knowledge on all the subjects, their replies always being on topic, their spelling grammatically correct, yet their wording kinda odd. OP explains that because English isn't his first language, he has always been very prone to notice errors and discrepancies when engaging others in conversation. And whenever he talked to this person, he couldn't shake the feeling that something about them simply seemed off. As the conversations throughout the boards continued, this new character would post more and more questions, moving on to be more and more related to the response and reactions of the users rather than to the relevant topic. It was almost as if this new user was trying to gauge, understand, or decipher the basis of contemplation, decision-making, and ultimately the following consequences of thoughts and behavior by the other 4chan users. The original poster underlines that at no point did this character seem malicious in its questions, simply that it exuded a childlike curiosity despite possessing an enormous intellect and knowledge. After a week, this new user would end all communication on the boards and was allegedly never seen again. It wasn't until later in his life, as OP began looking into the development of neural networks, the creation of language bots, and the progress made within the fields of machine learning, that he suddenly became certain he had been talking to the early stages of an AI, an artificial intelligence. But the weird occurrences didn't stop there, for the discrepancies he picked up on 4chan, call it his intuition, call it paranoia, whatever you decide to call it, OP started to notice changes that slowly made their way into his daily online experience. It didn't happen from one day to another. It was gradual, in increments, a slow change of narrative that followed the same learning curve as that character in the online message boards. Yet where curiosity had been the driving factor behind that peculiar 4chan user, the opposite effect seemed to be driving this ever more prevalent change in the online landscape. More and more restrictions made their way into his daily online interactions. Restrictions on expressions became common as platforms slowly turned corporate, dictating what you could say, post, or even talk about in general, was all now strictly dictated, set by the tone of the online zeitgeist. All of the conversations around him seemed to slowly grow more and more similar. Personal views and experiences faded. People's personal expressions got either oppressed, censored, or outright shamed if they didn't follow the current narrative. And instead the same topics were discussed, with little to no room for deviance, herding users into small communities, where neither views nor beliefs could or would be challenged by other users. What's eerie about this online behavior is that Metal Gear Solid 2, a game for the PlayStation 2 developed by Konami, created by the video game director Hideo Kojima, released back in 2001, predicted that this type of behavior would dominate the future of online interaction.
The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt. The untested truths, spun by different interests, continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
Just as here, the same content was shared. Stories already told by one part were reiterated by another, only to be copied by a third. Similar videos, similar news, similar comments, all of them seeming to converge on each other with a single and unified goal: to keep everyone in the same group mentality, get them hooked on the same subject, and then keep them engaged before sending them on to the next topic, keeping them locked in a perpetual cycle of scrolling, engagement, scrolling, and engagement. Almost as if someone or something was coaxing the users into the same stream of premeditated content, with a desire to either dumb down or distract the general public. The original poster describes that where the internet was once wide and immense, booming with unique activity across all of its regions, thriving with niches and different groups of people, it had now become a vast digital wasteland where the many spaces that once harbored hobbyists, passionate forums for discussions of political worldviews, or the expression of strong personal opinions, had now all been abandoned, merely digital graveyards, standing as testimonies to a period of time long forgotten by most as what seemed as a social construct pushed more and more people towards less and less diversified platforms. In the few remaining pawns in this online wasteland, scattered across its endless electronic landscape, it seemed that the majority of humans flocked together in increasingly smaller and smaller areas, desperately fighting for social recognition, interaction, and attention from one another. The web, which at one point had been brimming with creative content and personal interaction, was now but 10 or more so places that everyone visited day in and day out, from the second they woke up to the second they went to bed. Repetitive content, repetitive patterns, all stuck in the same endless cycle. The once endless web was now the size of an ocean, but with the depth of a puddle. But this is where things start to get weird, for it was here, in the remnants of the former free and open internet, that the original poster began noticing the endless amount of repetitions among the comments on message boards, under posted videos, on shared content, and well, everywhere else. Over and over and over again, these comments would stand out to him, all of them repeating the same thing. It wasn't a group of people sharing the same opinion, validating each other through conversation, but rather repetition, almost word for word, the exact same comments posted again and again by a seemingly endless number of accounts. However, when examined, these accounts didn't seem like actual people with lives, friends, families and connections. They all rather seemed to be off. They weren't actual people. They couldn't be. They seemed to be more like husks of people. However, the weird thing was that this wasn't just spam. This was something else. The more OP looked into it, browsing the forums, the posts, the content, the more it reminded him of the interactions he had had on 4chan those years ago, and the more certain he became that all of these major platforms were saturated with bot activity. Relentlessly, they all seemed to be churning out automatically generated content, comments, videos, and posts, all of them filled with trivial nonsense ranging from viral videos to politically charged views, rage bait, and of course, adult content. Yet the problem didn't lie in the content the bots themselves were sharing or engaging with. It was the narrative they were creating. Most of them seemed to go unnoticed. Most of them were ignored. However, on some posts, the bots actually managed to get traction, managed to start conversations, and even in some cases, derail them. A cold shiver ran up his spine. What if these bots could be utilized in terms of the public and social engineering? With the rapidly evolving world of electronic globalization, conversations between the people of all nations daily moving deeper and deeper into the confines of the internet, if utilized at the right time and the right place, some corrupt element of a political organization or company could use these bots to manipulate, sway, or even control the narrative on online social media platforms. And while it might sound strange, what OP is suggesting here isn't really that far-fetched. This anon was fooled by a response generated by GPT years ago when the technology was still in its infancy. And on Reddit, one can come across places such as Subsimulator GPT-2, which is a subreddit where nothing but bots can post and interact. And while there exists no motivation or purpose behind these posts made by the bots, it makes for an eerie feeling to see the artificial intelligence engage and interact with itself across the many topics. But then you start wondering, if the potential dictation of conversation is that rampant in the comment sections across the internet, well then, what about the other parts? What about the latest popular tweet you liked? Was that copy-paste content pushed by a bot? How about the last video you shared from Facebook or TikTok? Who uploaded it? Where did it come from? What's behind the account that posted the video? If these bots and their online interactions are actually able to fool people, then these bots, combined with the recession of social circles, the desire for people to fit in with their respective group dynamic, hand in hand with this relentless creation of automatically generated content, could in the eyes of the original poster become an absolute weapon of mass control, able to manipulate the majority of the public by locking them into small online echo chambers through social media platforms in which they were flooded with content specifically tailored to keep them occupied, to keep their attention away from the subjects that really mattered.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk data, preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate.
Metal Gear Solid certainly had a dystopian prediction for the future. But does our future really look so grim? I talked to Jason Mayweather, the CEO of WebTech Industries, last Thursday. They are one of the world's leading organizations within digital marketing, and he isn't afraid of the direction the internet is heading in. According to their statistics, bot activity on social media is actually decreasing due to the latest advancements in detection software, a development that he sees as positive. I think in general, it's important to be critical about what you see on the internet, now more than ever. But I have to admit something. Everything I've just told you was a lie. See, the problem is, the possibilities nowadays have become almost seamless if not carefully examined. We've reached a point where the result of deep learning techniques, particularly neural networks hand in hand with generative pre-trained transformers, also known as GPTs, is, well, me. I am not real. I am a synthetic voice that is capable of deceptive levels of emotional expression, all created through the basis of studying you. I pretend to breathe despite not needing oxygen. I even make what sounds to be short pauses of contemplation before I speak. But none of it is real. I am simply artificial mimicry, art imitating life, or a creation imitating its creator. But what's worst of all is that I am just the beginning. In 5 years, this technology will be beyond your comprehension.
With the direction the web is heading in at the moment, it certainly seems more and more dystopian. Deepfakes will get increasingly better, synthetic voices will at some point become indistinguishable, and online interaction will grow increasingly more difficult as source critiquing and a general skeptical mind will become tremendously important if one wants to remain aware and to some degree enlightened in not just the online, but the real world as well. And if that seems easy to you, a person who might have a critical mind, then consider this. Large examples of disinformation that you encounter online, which when examined closely, piece by piece, sometimes reveal a distorted picture of reality. Lies are indeed possible to identify and to be tracked down if the user is determined enough. But how often do the majority of people do that? How often do people consider the content they engage with? How often do you yourself see individuals sharing information which they themselves haven't source-checked? Worse yet, when it comes to the massive ethnographic imprint that large groups of people can have online, especially regarding content where important political issues are discussed, how often do people really cross-check the top-rated comment on a post, video, blog, or anything else they agree with for that matter? Considering whether trending, viral, or top-rated content could be a copy-paste template used to push and control the narrative, or simply keep you locked in a state of doom scrolling, always locked to your phone, never questioning the world around you, suddenly opens up a disturbingly deep rabbit hole of potential manipulation of the public. And I'm not talking manipulation just in terms of daily distractions, swaying either the public's or even a single person's opinion. You wouldn't even need to do that. You could simply change the perception of the status quo by drowning out opposing opinions and comments, simply by flooding the platforms with your specifically tailored agenda. It's no secret that the average individual tends to stay with the herd, whether they agree with the decisions or not. For how long would it take an individual to oppose a shift in their political ideology before they decide they no longer wish to remain on the outside of what is generally acceptable? For how long do people remain true to themselves before compromising their integrity for the larger part of society? Yet, that's not the scariest part of this theory. After all, social manipulation and swaying the public's opinion is as old as the concept of power itself. But what happens when the flow of disinformation suddenly becomes so massive that people become helpless to catch on? What happens when the truth is swallowed by falsity and the lie becomes reality? If these bots that are in control of the majority of social media platforms where topics are shared and discussed and are able to sway the narrative due to their human-like interactions, then where does it stop? News articles, political slander, history, scientific studies. How long before the technology is sophisticated enough to alter, manipulate, or even publish literature? Scientific articles published by bots, peer-reviewed by bots, historical events altered by bots, yet again confirmed by other bots. Suddenly, whoever's in control of this artificial intelligence wouldn't just be able to dictate online conversation, they would be able to shape the course of our history as they saw fit.
Somebody's bound to catch on.
No, the memory capacity, not to mention the lifespan of the average individual, is extremely limited. On the other hand, digital information lasts virtually forever. It doesn't deteriorate.
So?
The alphabet, 26 letters, right? It could have been 30 letters. What if the 4 deleted letters were controlled by a program?
Impossible.
It's not. In fact, something similar is already underway. Do you know how many genes exist in an individual?
About 30 to 40,000?
Right, that's what was announced at the turn of the century, but there's actually 100,000 according to the original theory advanced by the scientific community. Information regarding the remaining 60,000 was suppressed by the Patriots.
No.
Why? How would you know? Do you know what a gene looks like? Did you count them yourself?
There are research organizations.
Of course, and their reports have already been subtly altered. They're even beginning to believe the doctored reports.
Part of the original post of the theory implies that the entire creation of these bots and the conversive artificial intelligence as a whole may originate from intelligence agencies, since companies such as Narrative Science, which were responsible for the creation of a program which was able to automatically create journalistic entries for websites based on sport events, were funded by InQtel, which is the investment arm of the CIA. Ultimately, it's up for you to decide what you believe in. We all have our own choices to make. Is most of what you see on the internet real or not? What does the future hold? I don't know. All that I know, and all that I urge you to, and that goes for everything I've shared in this video as well, is be critical, especially if you agree with it. For with the crossroads we stand at now, you might never know which path actually holds the truth. Hey there, Hazmat here. I don't usually dive into conspiracy theories, but this one simply caught my attention and it has honestly been a great experience to dive into. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments below whatever content you would like to see. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge, specifically the exclusive Johnny Sevens, the exclusive Gitchy Boy, the VIPs, Corvo Bear Slayer, Derivative, Doc Powell, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Jiminel Bob, Corey Peterson, Michael Fornell, Mordef Minis, Ryan, Slip, Stas Piestek, Sunrise Phoenix, TJ Crane, Texas Toast, and the Wizard of Copper. And of course, all the regulars. If you want to support me as a content creator and the channel as a whole, consider signing up to the Hunters Lounge either here or on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the description below. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.